A kiss she never asked for, from a man she should have never met. The first thing Lena noticed about the man was not his face, but the way he stood too close, as if the space between people was a rule he had never learned. It happened on a rainy evening, the kind where the city felt smaller, compressed under gray clouds and flickering streetlights. Lena had ducked into the old bookshop on the corner to escape the rain, shaking water from her sleeves and breathing in the familiar scent of paper and dust. She went there often. Books were safe. Books never crossed lines. The man reached for the same shelf she did. Their hands didn't touch, but the closeness made her pause. "Sorry," he said quickly, smiling as if that alone fixed everything. She nodded, stepping aside. That should have been the end of it. Strangers brushed past each other every day. But when she turned toward the poetry section, she felt his eyes linger, following her like an unanswered question. Lena told herself she was imagining it. She paid for her book and stepped back into the rain, pulling her hood up. The street was nearly empty, the usual rush softened by the weather. As she walked, she heard footsteps behind her, unhurried, matching her pace a little too perfectly. "Hey," the man's voice called out. "You dropped this." She turned. He held up a receipt. Her receipt. "Oh, thank you," she said, relieved and annoyed at the same time. She hadn't even realized she'd dropped it. "No problem," he replied. "You like poetry?" It was an innocent enough question. Lena hesitated, then answered, "Sometimes." "Same," he said, even though she wasn't sure she believed him. "I'm Mark." "Lena," she said, mostly out of politeness. They walked together for half a block. He talked easily, too easily, as if they were old friends catching up instead of strangers stitched together by coincidence. He asked where she studied, what she liked to write, whether she believed in fate. Lena gave careful answers, the kind that revealed nothing important. When they reached the bus stop, she felt relieved. An ending. A clean exit. "Well," she said, stepping back, "this is me." Mark smiled again. "Maybe I'll see you around." "Maybe," she replied, already turning away. That should have been the end of the story. But the city has a strange way of folding moments back onto themselves. Over the next week, Lena saw him twice more. Once at the campus cafe, where he waved like it was the most natural thing in the world to recognize her. Another time at the crosswalk near her apartment. Each encounter felt accidental, yet stacked together they formed a pattern she couldn't quite name. Her friends noticed the change before she did. "You okay?" Maya asked one afternoon, watching Lena stare at her phone without really seeing it. "Yeah," Lena said, "just tired." But at night, she replayed conversations in her head, not because she liked him, but because something about him unsettled her. He was friendly, yes, but also persistent, always leaning just a little closer, always steering conversations toward personal territory she hadn't offered. One evening, as Lena left the library after a late study session, she saw him waiting by the steps. Her heart sank. "Hey," Mark said, as if they had planned this. "I was hoping I'd run into you." "I'm actually in a hurry," Lena replied immediately. "I'll walk with you," he said, already falling into step beside her. She considered telling him to stop. The words rose to her throat, then tangled with doubt. Maybe she was overreacting. Maybe she was being rude. The streetlights cast long shadows as they walked. "You're hard to read," Mark said lightly. "You know that." "I don't try to be," Lena answered. He laughed. "That's what makes you interesting." The word made her uncomfortable. Interesting felt like something taken, not given. When they reached her building, Lena stopped. "This is me. Good night." "Wait," Mark said. Before she could step back, before she could say anything else, he leaned forward and kissed her. It was brief, unclumsy, and completely unwanted. Lena froze, her mind scrambling to catch up with her body. When she pulled away, her heart was racing, not with excitement, but with shock. Mark started, smiling as if he had just done something sweet. "I've wanted to do that since the bookstore." "Don't," Lena said sharply. The word came out stronger than she expected. "You shouldn't have done that." His smile faltered. You thought wrong," she said, taking a step back. "I never asked for that." Silence settled between them, thick and uncomfortable. "Oh," he said finally. "I didn't mean to make you upset." "But you did," Lena replied. Her voice trembled, but she didn't soften it. Please don't follow me again. She turned and walked inside, her hands shaking as she fumbled for her keys. That night, she couldn't sleep. The kiss replayed in her mind, not as a romantic moment, but as a question that had been forced into an answer. She felt angry. At him, at herself, at the way she had been taught to doubt her own instincts. The next day, she told Maya everything. You did nothing wrong, Maya said immediately. Nothing. Hearing it out loud helped. The guilt Lena hadn't realized she was carrying began to loosen its grip. Mark didn't disappear right away. He sent messages. Apologies wrapped in excuses, explanations that centered his intentions instead of her feelings. Lena didn't reply. Silence, she realized, was also a boundary. Weeks passed. The city returned to its usual rhythm. The bookshop remained where it always had, warm and quiet and safe. Lena still went there, though she chose different hours, different routes. One afternoon, while flipping through a worn novel, she felt a familiar tension in her shoulders, and then relief when she realized it was only habit, not presence. Healing, she learned, wasn't dramatic. It was made of small decisions. To trust herself, to speak clearly, to walk away without apologizing. She began writing again, pouring her confusion and clarity onto blank pages. Her words weren't about him, not really. They were about learning where her edges were, and how fiercely she could protect them. Months later, Lena stood at the same bus stop where she had once thought a stranger's smile was harmless. The rain fell softly, tapping against the pavement. She watched people pass, each carrying their own stories, their own choices. Some meetings were meant to be brief. Some were lessons, not beginnings. And some kisses, she knew now, were not gestures of affection, but reminders of how important it was to be heard. Lena adjusted her hood, feeling steadier than she had that night long ago. The city moved around her, wide and open again. And this time, she trusted herself to take up the space she deserved.